Teddy, let's get right into it. The NBA took center stage over the weekend. So a lot of tough talk after a Game 3 win by OKC, but Game 4, different story. Same result shooting-wise from Russell Westbrook out here, now facing elimination, Teddy, in Oklahoma City.
Yeah, I love the Russell Westbrook
There you
nod there. Westbrook just 5 of 21 from the field in that Game 4 loss. Now remember, OKC, since Durant left, they've been knocked out of the playoffs each of the last 3 years. And you know what? Westbrook, under 40% in the postseason in each of those 3 postseason failures. It was a huge weekend for the road teams, no question. 8-0 straight up, 7-1 against the spread in the NBA for the road squads. And Portland, one of them, taking advantage. I don't think they appreciated that Paul George dunk at the buzzer in the Game 3 loss. Blazers, the flawed Blazers, bounce back with an impressive win on the road, take command of that series.
Yeah, Teddy, we talked about it before the NBA playoffs started. This was one of those series that we might be able to factor in where OKC, despite being the lower seeded team and heading on the road for the first 2 games, would be able to pull it off. And you were still getting pretty good odds. Even after, Teddy, they were 0-2 heading back to OKC. You were getting a plus 200 number. Now, obviously, 3-1 going back to Portland, and that number changes up to plus 450. Just looking at the series overall, and we know referendum on Russell Westbrook. He can't win without Durant. He can't win without Harden. And we get that. Do you see a pushback here? Is there even any value in your mind at that plus 450? Is this one of those teams that, you know what, they're going to go back to Portland and it's just going to be shut the door end of the season?
It's a huge difference when you're talking about a team that has to play 2 road games in their final 3 while sweeping the 3 to win the series. If you're talking about a team that's got to go on the road and win, or it's at home for Game 5, and they lose that and they go on the road for Game 6, still got home in Game 7, makes an enormous difference. That's not the case for the OKC Thunder. I'm not convinced they're going to get past Game 5 of this series.
Hey, let's go around the NBA a little bit because a lot happened on Saturday and Sunday. As we talked it up on Friday on that betting show. You had 4 games on Saturday, 4 games also on Sunday. The Celtics move on after dispatching the Pacers in just 4 games. Gordon Hayward drops 20 points as the Pacers get it and win cover. And depending on where you were shopping at, Teddy, most likely closing at 3.5, you ended up getting that win on the Celtics. Also, we saw on Saturday an interesting game between the Sixers and the Nets. And the one thing I do want to bring up here, Teddy, because we are gamblers heading in, and you always want the best number. It's one of the more interesting situations I've seen where all indications of the Sixers' best player are to sit out, and yet hour before the game, oh, by the way, he's doubtful, not supposed to play. Yeah, he's going to play tonight. Talk about that a little bit, Teddy, when trying to get the best number in the game, when you have just an odd situation, because we don't see that this much. Either you're in or you're out. It's very rare that we see guys doubtful in the morning turn into probable and then play extremely well in the games.
It happened in the regular season. But in the postseason, the spotlight shines a lot brighter on the NBA. But we see it all the time. This guy, he's out. He's not playing tonight. Next thing you know, you see him in warm-ups and suiting up. Or, he's good to go. And next thing you know, in warm-ups, he's sitting there in street clothes. It happens in the NBA. And obviously, in a league where there's only 5 guys on the floor at any one time, the impact of players being in or out of the lineup is enormous on the point spread. That being said, it's enormous on the point spread. It's not always enormous on the floor. Philly played just as well without Embiid in Game 3 as they did with him in Game 4. So even though it is superstar players in and out of the lineup and lines bouncing around because of it, remember, everybody on the roster is an NBA team or an NBA player capable of stepping up even in the postseason. We have to talk for just a second about the total in Boston, Indiana yesterday, a dead nuts under the whole game, the entire game. What did they score? They scored 50 points. They scored, I think it was 40 points the last 4 minutes of that
fourth, I think it was. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. But they scored 20 in the last 2. All right. To send that game flying over the total, which has been a dead nuts under throughout. But 3-pointer, free throw, 3-pointer, 3-throw, bucket. I mean, the last 4 minutes of that game turned a dead nuts under to an EV over cash. Sometimes the NBA will treat you that way, unfortunately. Kudos if you had an over ticket in that game. You got one you probably didn't deserve.
Best thing I like about the playoffs, Teddy, and you see it more so in the NHL playoffs when you get that, but 7-game series, teams start to hate each other after game 2. It's fun watching the Sixers series going back and forth. The Jared Dudleys of the world, the GM being suspended for a game for saying his team's being treated unfairly in the court. You got the thrown out of the game on Saturday, Jimmy Butler, Jared Dudley. It makes for some good stuff that you usually only see in the NHL. But the one thing that we have to say is in the NHL, we see, and again, it happened twice. What I think it was the Flames, and of course with the Tampa Bay Lightning. Top-level teams getting knocked out early, but it always seems, Teddy, in the NBA, the cream always rises to the top, especially over a 7-game series, and you're seeing that with the Warriors, Bucks, and Rockets all looking to close their teams out, as well as the Philadelphia 76ers.
Yeah, look, the NBA is not the NHL. It's not the NFL. It's not MLB, where teams can get hot. In football, we see it all the time. Somebody gets hot at the end of the regular season, they catch fire, boom, some wild card team goes on to win the Super Bowl. You see it in baseball. Some team gets in the postseason, boom, they get hot. Next thing you know, they win a couple series. They're on their way. The Kansas City Royals are winning a World Series or whatever. It does happen. NHL, it happens all the time because you just get a hot goalie. Where, hey, number 1 seeds, remember your regular season? Bye-bye. Both number 1 seeds going home in the NHL. In the NBA, that doesn't happen basically ever. The better teams win these series, and the healthier teams win these series. And we went going in. We said the top 4 teams in the East, those are the best 4 teams in the Eastern Conference. And lo and behold, not too much drama so far in the East. A little bit of drama in the West, but again, we're seeing the class come to the top in a 7-game series. You don't have a hot goaltender in the NBA. You don't have a lineup that catches fire. You have good teams, mediocre teams, very good teams, banged up teams. The good teams that stay healthy, they survive and advance, just like we're seeing here in the first round.
Teddy, staying healthy, getting on fire, playing good, talent rise to the top. Well, I think we're talking about those Los Angeles Dodgers now. Winners of 7 of 8, taking 3 of 4 on the road in Milwaukee. And we're gamblers, Teddy. We always like to preface that by saying, and when you watch Milwaukee baseball, if you are going against Milwaukee, and let's just say it's the 7th, 8th, or 9th inning, and you're down a run or 2, and Josh Hader comes in the game, normally you can turn the TV off, say, well, rip up that ticket. Not so fast. Some really good at-bats by Cody Bellinger and Kiki Hernandez over the weekend, propelling the Dodgers to that 3 of 4. Impressive stuff for the Dodgers. Even Clayton Kershaw chips in yesterday and has his second good start of the year coming back off of the IL. Things looking up for the Dodgers, but then again, that's a talented team. This is what they're supposed to do, right?
Sure. I mean, the Dodgers have been the class of the NL West this entire decade, and that really hasn't changed this season. There was some thought and there's some concern about LA coming up short in the postseason repeatedly and whether that would have a legitimate factor on this team, especially early on where, hey, we're playing for October, we're not playing for April. But the talent on that roster is very real. The payroll shows it, and the Dodgers are playing very good baseball right now. And when you're banging out the closer, we talked about this with Houston right when they started on that 10-game winning streak, where they were banging out good at-bats against quality relief pitchers in Oakland, and then for the Yankees, and then boom, those bats got going. Well, here are the Dodgers banging out quality at-bats and runs against elite bullpens. That's worth noting, and those are teams that we want to be on and betting over the total in games to come. They are taking good at-bats just about every time they come to the plate.